today.
Yeah, she's really something.
Yeah.
I saw her in The Wolf of Wall Street. Have you seen that?
Yeah, she does some
basically a porn film.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, she does some stuff.
Are you filming those?
She was.
Would you please not put that on there?
She was nerdy as a kid. You know how supermodels like to go on talk shows and talk about how nerdy they were in junior high, middle school? But like she honestly was.
All right, fine. So the world will know that I think Margot Robbie's pretty. Okay, fair enough. I'll live with that.
You know, supermodels go on Kimmel or whatever, and they say that their nickname in 8th grade was Skeletor because but like she honestly was super nerdy. She loved Harry Potter so much that she had Harry Potter glasses made with non-corrective lenses just so she could look like Harry Potter in like middle school. According to a story she told. I don't disbelieve it.
Well, they can't just be beautiful at 9 years old, unless they're John Benet Ramsey,
Yeah, that doesn't work out so well. Yeah, but it's I like when honest. I mean, everybody's a fucking nerd now, and not the way we suffered, or at least I suffered for nerdiness. But anyway,
I would just say you have to have until you become a supermodel, you still have to have a personality.
Yeah, I mean, the reason supermodels are supermodels is they get super tall because they stay like really skinny for a long time, and
pizza.
Okay.
They get skinny and
when you get boobs, the boobs pump out estrogen, and the estrogen makes you stop growing height-wise. Yes.
Rick?
Yeah.
Who was your who did you beat off to as a kid in terms of supermodels?
I never beat off to supermodels. It was because I started beating off when I was like probably a little younger than 9.5. And
we gotta pay the man.
Okay, I got $10.
So it's 24. So it's actually 27.
So I may have to owe you something.
You'll have to owe me 27 divided by
13.50.
We're only 350.
What's the tip?
No, that's 27.
So what happens is usually before we start the show. We have pizza, or we have chicken.
Thank you.
Either way, Rick is super generous. It's kind of like our craft service. Anyway, you were saying, Rick, in terms of the super.
So if you start beating off at 9.5, we're talking, it was still the 60s when I started beating off. Well, the last few months of the 60s, and. So by the time we got to the supermodel era, somebody at least had to be a Playboy, in Playboy fully naked, like for me to be able to beat off to that person. So I rode in an elevator once with Cindy Crawford, but it did not lead to any beating off.
Was she tall?
She's okay. I mean, yeah.
She's taller than you?
5'9". No, not taller than me. And I had a zit, so it's like, not that would have made any difference, but like, I think my thinking in the elevator was, I've got a zit. But it wouldn't have made a freaking bit of difference anyhow.
Real quick, what is a genius? What kind of music does a genius listen to? Like, what is your favorite kind? We've never talked about.
The last time I really had a deep appreciation for a guy's music was Prince. So we're talking, last time I had a...
Hey, you gotta come into the foyer to get your food.
All right. Okay. The last time I had a girlfriend where we had our song, this is so long ago that our song was Thriller. Because we knew about it for some reason months before the video came out. We decided we really liked it. But that makes it, what, 1983 probably. And Prince was that era of Prince. I was good at dancing to that era of Prince. Nice. So we're talking.
Give us a little sample.
No.
You got to get paid for that, right?
No, I just I'm 8 weeks away from being in the coronavirus high risk pool. So.
Right. All right.
You know, there was a Michael Richards story.
It's not much. Are we going? 146. So people, Lance brought up that he's heard that the Seinfeld set was very contentious with lots of, I guess, cantankerous.
No, it was Elaine and Michael Richards, Kramer.
Yeah, Kramer is Michael Richards.
What I heard was that Michael Richards was a very sensitive artiste trying to get into the mood, and that Elaine would
just say the fucking
mischievously sort of tease him or whatever, which is exactly what you would hope she would do, because that was her character.
Yeah.
And so they didn't get along very well, and still they managed to make this great show.
So Michael Richards famously, probably 10 years ago now, had a temper tantrum on stage at the Comedy Store where he said the N-word like 150 million times or
Which
something.
was him trying to be funny?
No, he was pissed. I think, right? Have you seen the tape?
Well, I've been to a lot of comedy clubs.
Yeah, but he was maybe...
And one of the jokes they make is saying the most offensive thing in the world, and everybody laughs.
Yeah, but I think he was honestly pissed. But anyway, I saw him have a freak out in roughly 1985 in a bar where I was bouncing in Boulder, Colorado, that had a comedy night like once every week or two. And I was working the door, so I didn't see what set him off. But
Well, hang on. Was this when they were at the peak of their fame?
No, this was before. This was when the only broadcast network thing he'd done was a show called Fridays, which was, CBS's, ABC, some other network besides NBC's attempt to copy Saturday Night Live.
And it was funny.
I don't remember, but
Yeah.
I was supposed to be on that fucking show. I won a comedy contest, but anyway, they said that was just to hype the show. If you're, we're not going to put you on the fucking show. If you want to get on TV, then move to LA and start doing stand-up. And I was too much of a puss to do that. But anyway, working this club in Boulder, Michael Richards had some kind of freak out. As I remember, he ran out of jokes or something, which doesn't sound right. But in any case, he grabbed the fire extinguisher and set it off. And it's one of those ones that was chemical, so it makes the snow, and it's a fire extinguisher that once you set it off at all, you can't stop it until the tank is empty. So he filled the club with this chemical snow, and
That's funny.
it was interesting. The whole front half of the club, it was a long, narrow club, so the front half of the club was snowed out. So the whole crowd, it wasn't a full house, moved to the back of the club. He stood in the center of the club on a table and finished his set. So,
Wow.
exciting. I also saw Roseanne Barr in that same club during her very earliest days, because she started as a stand-up in Denver, as a housewife, a very angry housewife in Denver.
How was it?
It was okay. It was fine.
Well, I just wanted to say, I saw our show last week, and as correct as I think I was in my arguments, I am not going to lose my temper. Now, no matter how horrible, no matter how irrational, how goading, how completely difficult and unpleasant Rick becomes, I will not lose my temper. I need a safe word. Should there be a safe word in this?
No,
that's no matter
like
what
shtick.
happens.
I mean, yeah, the director can remind us. And I'm also prepared to be extremely reasonable tonight. And I'm going to start with this. Now, all this past week, Trump has said a bunch of stupid shit about coronavirus. However, having looked at the numbers and watched the numbers get more and more dire, I'm not convinced at this point that that would have made that had he not had a different president, a more stately president, a more prepared president, a more sciencey president, had been where Trump is, I'm not sure that would have appreciably changed the path of coronavirus. Now, our director says he doesn't think there's going to be a pandemic. But, you hate when I do numbers, but here are a shitload of numbers. Coronavirus is now in 33 U.S. states. I mean, it's probably in, 45 plus, but it's documented, certified cases, 33 states, 109 nations, 110 certified cases. I'm sorry, 110,000 certified cases, 38,000 deaths. And the rate at which new cases are being discovered doubled in the past 3 days. Until 3-4 days ago, it was 2,000 cases a day worldwide. Now it's 4,000. And there's nothing to... There was a CDC guy was on the radio, and he said that the time for containment is probably over, and now it's the time for mitigation. Containment is where you try to find all the origins, the people who, the patient zeros. You go talk to them, and you put them in quarantine, and then you talk to everybody who talked to that person, and you isolate them, and you just shut everything down. But it's out in the world enough that I don't think it can be contained. And the last time we had a pandemic, which was the swine flu, the H1N1 virus of 2009, 2010, I don't know why I'm coughing. I don't think it's coronavirus. But by the time that ran its course, 59 million Americans got like swine flu is what they called it. And that was even with the swine flu vaccine. And between 10 and 20% of everybody in the whole fucking world got it. And fortunately for everybody, it wasn't super killing. 59 million Americans got it, but only 12,500 died from it. But it's a similar deal where there's no stopping this thing at this point. They're slowing it down. If you stay in your house. Carol and I went out to dinner tonight, and it was weird. I mean, normally go out to dinner every, once a week. But it was weird being out because now everybody seems like a potential disease vector to us. And it was especially disturbing to see, young olds, people in their 50s, taking old olds, their parents in their 70s, 80s, maybe 90s, out for dinner. It's like, don't do that anymore. Don't do that till it's cleared up. Because coronavirus will preferentially kills older, unhealthy people. And I'm 8 weeks away from joining from the higher risk pool. I turned 60 in May. So anyway, that's enough.
By the way, this is interesting. A lot of the YouTubers that give shows were careful about what they said about coronavirus, because if they mentioned it, YouTube would sort of intercede or something. And I did see that YouTube had a little thing underneath our show saying that if you want to know more about coronavirus, you can go to this website. Which I don't really give a damn.
I think that's good.
Say whatever they want.
There's only a few things to know. One is fucking wash your hands. I Purelled my hands. I go from gym to gym to gym, which is really stupid to do at this point because but at every gym I Purell my hands at least twice.
It's supposed to cover your mouth.
Cover your mouth. Cover your fucking mouth with your elbow. I just started coughing when we started rolling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the fucking deal is. Anyway, wash your hands.
It's ground zero of the pandemic right now, right here.
Don't touch your face. Don't go out in crowds. Stanford University is not having classes in classrooms for this coming semester. It's all going to be online. I say go shopping at night. You know, LA and probably most major cities and probably a lot of smaller towns have at least one supermarket that's open 24 hours. Well, if you can, go shopping after 9 or 10 p.m. when the crowds are smaller. And I add, when I tweet about it, you know, and my tweets are always, you know, like Trump hating. I say, and as a fourth thing, you know, elect better people. But I mean, there isn't that much to know. Like, my wife has been having us stockpile stuff. We have masks. We have big tubs of those sanitary wipes. We have not enough, according to my wife, bottles of the hand sanitizer. We've got food I bought at a place we call the Moth Store. It's a place where they buy this salvage junk, and it's really cheap. Like, we've been buying boxes of 36 Nature Valley granola bars for $3, which is 8 cents a piece.
You should do that anyway, whether there's a virus or not.
That's true. Even though they're expired, how expired can a fucking Nature Valley granola bar get? We call it the Moth Store because one time there was an infestation of moths associated with a bunch of candy bars, expired candy bars I bought from the place. And so now Carol thinks anything we buy from there is going to be mothy.
Those are the ones you brought here?
Yeah, the ones with the worms you gave me.
Yeah, I was the only one who ate the larvae.
You actually devoured it?
Well, I didn't realize that it was maggoty until I'd eaten half the candy bar.
Wow, and did you notice it?
I did when I looked, and there was like a maggot.
How did it affect the taste?
It tasted stale beforehand, and it tasted stale after I realized that it was. But you know, my dad was in Strategic Air Command. These were the guys who flew the nukes around in the 1950s during the scariest part of the Cold War. And they would send them out to the desert to survive in the desert as if they'd crashed landing. And they were supposed to eat maggots if they couldn't find anything else. So, like, if my dad can eat maggots and, you know, be a hero of the Cold War, I can fucking eat maggots from the Moth Store.
I have a friend who was a paratrooper, and he had to eat bugs. And I asked him how the bugs tasted. And he said, well, Lance, you know, bugs aren't spiced, so they don't really have a taste.
They have a texture.
Food has a taste. Bugs don't. Yeah. It made sense. I always assumed they'd be a cross between curry and pesto, but no, they don't have a taste.
But they have a texture, which is bad. If you think about the bugness of them, you know, they're hard on the outside and they're gooey on the inside.
No, I heard they're not hard. Most bugs are actually soft. They only look hard. When you bite into them, they don't crunch like M&Ms or anything.
By the way,
Like
on that
brown.
topic, there's a mezcal, it's a tequila, where there's a worm and you eat the worm.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to eat the worm on camera, Lance?
I mean, I guess.
Okay, cool, because that's been a hit on YouTube.
Really? Would people eat the fucking...
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd do that.
Lance, would you?
No.
All right, just say some stuff about... I've said a bunch of stuff about coronavirus.
Again, the only thing I can say is that the president's doing everything that a reasonable person can do. If you want stats on it, it was only brought to his attention in January, very early January, and within 3 weeks he canceled all trips from China, which is where it was coming from. Which is something that the Obama administration never did. When the Obama administration, when they had their disease outbreak, I forget what it was, they waited months until thousands of people had been killed.
Ebola, I think.
It wasn't Ebola. I think it was SARS.
No, it was swine flu. It was the
SARS.
H1N1. No, that's different. SARS only infected 8,000 people worldwide.
Right, but
and it was a killing disease.
But the flu that Obama had killed thousands of people before he took.
He declared a national emergency 20 days after they found the disease.
Okay, but Trump not only reacted, but he actually shut down all trips to China, which is vastly more energetic a reaction than Obama did. And Trump had no deaths in the United States when he did that, whereas Obama had already had at least 1,000 deaths before he acted as energetically. And I don't think he ever quarantined the U.S.
Well,
Furthermore,
I
know you don't know because you're.
But I do know that Trump fired the.
No, I'm not done. I'm not done yet. Trump also requested and passed billions and billions of dollars to try to fight it within weeks, within a few weeks, within like 3 or 4 weeks.
He asked for $2.5 billion, and Congress gave him $8.3 billion.
Well, great.
All right,
my point is that no one has any business criticizing Trump. Well, I'm not done. And the only thing that the Democrats have is, well, he said some intemperate things about it. And I thought, well, that's because he's not panicking. He's the leader. And I'm glad that he's not panicking because he's the leader and he's trying to show people calm. And I'm not done. And this goes to what I'm hearing from the Democrats. It turns out that all the Democrats I know are the ones that are panicking. Rick is true to form, just like all the other Democrats. They're racing out and getting all the special masks and Purell, and they're reading up about it. And ask a Democrat. Ask the Republicans what they're doing about it. Ask the Democrats. The Democrats are panicking. They're doing they're resorting to all these measures. The Republicans are all going, yeah, I'm not going to panic about this. And for a little fun, this morning I listened to NPR, which is the Democrat news, paid for by public tax dollars. And the Democrats on the PBS were spending like a half an hour. Normally, PBS does a show for about 5 minutes. They have a little an hour segment, yeah. But they spent the whole half hour while I was getting dressed talking about how terrible things are and how we're basically looking at a plague and it's all Trump's fault. And they're sorry to have to tell us that. I mean, it pains them. They spoke in solemn tones, and yeah, we're going to have to. It's a real sad thing that so many millions of people are going to have to die because of Trump. But we're sorry we had to report it. But it turns out, and I'm going to stick with what I said earlier before Rick interrupts me. I'm a Republican. We don't panic over the biannual panic that the Democrats cause. And in this case, they actually see this as a way of getting at President Trump because everything else has failed. So they're thinking to themselves, well, we'll blame the coronavirus on Trump and maybe we can get a few more votes. So,
yeah, but you know what? I just started this whole thing.
I was able to talk until Rick interrupted.
You're carrying.
I wasn't quite done.
I know, but one thing is, like, I started this whole thing by saying that I'm not sure anything Trump did would make an appreciable difference.
Yeah, I know you said that, but you didn't go far enough to say, you know what? He's done a lot. He's done very good. He reacted very quickly. He quarantined the country from Chinese people because it was coming from China. And
he loves to do that. He loves to say you can't fucking come in.
Well,
I
don't care if he loves to do that.
That's part of his.
It was the right thing to do.
It wasn't the wrong thing to
do. I mean, Trump did the right thing, and you can't give him credit. Instead of saying...
I just said...
No, but you didn't. You didn't. You said he doesn't deserve blame. I'm saying the guy's reacting with great dispatch and alacrity.
Well, he did the one thing, the thing he did is the thing he likes to do, which is...
That's a backhanded compliment.
It is a backhanded compliment. But it
is. You're being unfair.
Well, no, I'm not.
Why don't you just say he's doing the right thing?
No, because he did a lot of wrong things.
Like
too,
what?
But I'll
not
get to
panicking?
it. No, I'll get to it. And there's, Carol thinks I'm panicking. I think I'm being realistic.
Oh, good. Even his wife, even if the man's wife agrees with me. For God's sake,
she's panicking too. By the way, she doesn't. She's more panicky than I am. Now, damn it, where's my fucking chain of thought?
You were going to lie about
Trump? No. I'm not going to lie about Trump. I'm going to give him another backhanded or the same backhanded compliment. Now, as a Democrat, I think G.W. Bush II, was a pretty bad president. However, unlike a lot of Democrats, I thought about him. What are you looking for?
A better chair.
Okay. I think Bush, too, could have been a perfectly mediocre president, except that he had a lot of bad luck. He had the bad luck to get hit with 9/11, which I think a president would have had to be extremely lucky to have forestalled 9/11. There's that. There's the bad luck to pick a VP. Now, I could call you. We get in an argument about whether Cheney's evil or not, but I think we could almost agree that Cheney kind of had his own agenda. So he had the bad luck of picking a VP who...
I don't agree with that.
All right, well, let's not argue about that because I got other points. He had the bad luck to get hit with the financial collapse of 2007, 2008. And we can agree that that wasn't entirely his fault.
I agree with you on that.
All right, so anyway...
I don't think it was his fault at all. I don't think that was just sheer bad luck.
But anyway, and when I tweeted about this, somebody said, he had a role in all these things being bad. And I said, I don't disagree. Everything you say is true, but there was also an element of luck because comparing Bush's time in office to Clinton's time in office, Clinton was a lucky president. He didn't get hit with much of anything, right?
In fact, he got lucky as often as he could.
Yeah. I think, didn't he recently come out and say because he was helped with the stress or something? I don't know. Anyway, but in the case of Trump, at least when the coronavirus came along, there was this small bit of good luck that there was an appropriate response that was part of his repertoire, which is telling people they can't come in. So that's a small bit of good luck. Now, he did some other stuff that I'll agree with you that Democrats have been jumping on, which is he fired the CDC Pandemic Response Squad in 2018. And he's been saying a bunch of stuff.
Wait, I need to respond to that.
Okay.
The reason was that we had hired on a lot of extra people for the last virus flu thing. And he thought that we didn't need to keep them on. You don't have to keep them on forever. And then once another pandemic started, he hired them back. He hired, I guess, new ones. But the point is that he was looking at the budget and said, why do we need all these people? The SARS or the HNV1 is over, so we don't need them anymore. And he didn't cut back completely. In fact, in the end, they funded more of that emergency preparedness than we had before. So there was nothing wrong with the budget he had for preparedness against this kind of outbreak. The CDC, what is that? The
Center for Disease Control.
Yeah, it's a well-funded department. He didn't do anything bad to it,
except that
he was trying to see if there was any way of cutting back, and in the end, they weren't able to. So it was fine.
All right, so now whether Trump alone, we've been kind of, I think we were caught kind of flat-footed. People who are more cynical say there's a hashtag on Twitter called "Don't Test, Don't Tell," which is the idea that if you don't test very many people for corona, your numbers stay low. And in fact, as of earlier today, the U.S. had tested fewer than 2,000 people for coronavirus. And we've announced that the official number, right, at last time I checked, was 574 people in the U.S. with corona. 22 of those people died. South Korea has tested roughly 115,000 people for the virus. So for every person tested in America, 360 people in South Korea have been tested. And they've caught a lot of cases. So if you take, we're running at a 4% mortality rate, 22 over 574. South Korea is running at a 0.7% mortality rate. 51 people out of about 7,300 found to have the virus. So the deal is that they found a lot of people that, that if we knew the true number of people with the virus, and some of the statisticians I've found think we've got, 3,000, 5,000 people with it, we'd have a lower mortality rate too. So that the lack of testing contributed to a lack of containment, because we don't know where it's at bubbling away and where these people are going out and infecting other people. To the point where I don't know if containment would have ever been possible, but it's certainly not possible now.
All right. That's very interesting. I've noticed that all the Democrats I talk to are aware that or suspect that we're under testing, and so the results are much higher. And my argument is, so instead of having 20 people dead from this virus, maybe there are 60 people dead from this virus. So
it's not the dead, because the dead get subject to more scrutiny.
Well,
but yeah, there might, I don't know if there'd be 60, but there'd probably be 30.
But the point is that you said a statistic that 85 million, or was it 56 million?
59 million.
59 million Americans eventually got some virus in their system. Well, that's how humans beat these flus, these viruses. The way they do it is we develop immunity.
Community immunity.
Yeah, so what happens is I have no doubt that millions of Americans will end up with this, and that's how we'll beat it back, and then humanity won't have to worry about coronavirus. When Rick said 59 million people got this, it was like, what? We didn't lose 59 million people. No, their systems, took care of it. It reminds me of that thing that happened on, was it NBC, where the NBC anchor people, MSNBC, I think, decided that because Bloomberg spent $500 million.
Oh yeah, they did bad math. Somebody did bad math.
Yeah, Bloomberg spent $500 million and got something like 30,000 votes for that money. And the Democrats on NBC said, with that $500 million, he could have given $5 million to every
1 million American. Yeah, so they dropped a bunch of zeros.
Yeah, so, and they all agreed. And it just goes to show you, and then they sat back and said, that's why, it was something like, that's why Sanders is right. Because if you just took Bloomberg's money, or the billionaire's money, you could just spread it out to Americans, and everyone in America would be a millionaire. So it's just typical.
Well, okay,
Democrat
fucking MSNBC, you should put me on, because if I'd been on that fucking panel, I would have held up my hand and said, hold on.
I think anybody over the age of 12 would have. At least all the
I don't know.
Republicans
Like
I knew thought it sounded
people are
odd.
bad at doing math
And
in the clutch.
It reminded me of the statistic that Biden threw out, that America had lost 150 million people to gun violence in the past 10 years. He announced that in a debate. Look, I make mistakes when I speak. You can hear these discussions we're having. But I would have known that Americans didn't lose 150 million people.
What have we lost?
to
150,000?
Yeah, I was wondering where you even got. I don't even know if it's 150,000. It's a very straight. The number seems to just come out of nowhere.
No, 150,000 over 10 years seems reasonable.
It seems that way, but I
that's
don't know.
50,000 a year.
No, it isn't.
150,000 over 10 years?
It's 15,000.
I just said that.
No, you said. I thought you said 50.
No,
All
it's
right.
easy to mistake the.
All right. So anyway, all right. So let's move on to something.
No, wait, hold on.
interesting.
Let's see.
That's too much
Let's just
math.
be realistic about coronavirus. 80%, just because everybody's saying as a Democrat, I'm panicking. The deal is that it's better. Now, community immunity, I'm sure there's a better term because it sounds dumb because it rhymes, is going to be the way that this thing eventually fades, unless it's a virus that happens to be vulnerable to warm weather, which is a possibility but not a likelihood. It may go away during the summer months and come back again during colder months. Not go away, but subside. But yeah, the way that it becomes less virulent is when a bunch of people have immunity. But it would be helpful to hold down the rate at which people come down with it so the hospitals don't get overwhelmed. But realistically, 80% of the people who get a really mild thing, which is equivalent to like a flu or a cold that's not so bad. And then 20% of people get pretty sick, and roughly 2 to 3, the World Health Organization says 3.4%, but I think that number will drop a little bit, will die from it. And vulnerable populations will die. So yeah, it's not the plague, which took out a third of all Europeans.
Right.
But if 20 million people get it in America, which is not unlikely, 400,000 people could die.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, look, I'm going to tell you why I'm not panicking. So this is my, all Democrats are saying things that are very abundance of caution and responsible. I'm going to be irresponsible, and I'm going to say, since I was a kid, I've heard about different flus. And every year there's new flus, new strains of flus, and that's the thing about flus and colds, is that they come in all different strains, and they're constantly changing. And so far, there's never been an epidemic in my lifetime.
Not in your lifetime, but
yes, there was
42 years before you were born.
Yeah, there was an influenza in 1918, and humanity has progressed.
No, but we don't really have. We
do. We have a much better system of hygiene. We've got people that are far more advanced in isolating and curing these things.
But the mechanism by which the flu becomes less virulent is the same. It's that people get it and then become immune to it. Now, if we're lucky, we'll have a vaccine a year from now. But still, the way the disease will spread, and it's not a flu, it's something else. I don't know it's a coronavirus, whatever the fuck that is.
Well, a coronavirus is related to colds, the common cold.
Okay. But anyway, the Spanish flu of 1918 and 19 killed between 17 and 50 million people around the world when the world population was like 1.8, 1.9 billion, which means that it killed roughly 1 to 2 to 2.5% of everybody on Earth. This thing won't do that because not everybody will get it, but it could take out a shitload of people. And I don't know if this is going to start a lot of yelling, but you accuse me of just not caring about people because I would still vote for Obama, even though, according to you, Obama is responsible for the death of 250,000 people in Iraq, right? Because he left. He pulled the troops out. And then a bunch of shit happened, and we had to send troops back in. But in the interim, according to you, 250 million people got killed in Iraq.
Not according to me. It's according to the Iraq Body Count, which is an international agency.
Okay, all right. So, but anyway, you're pretty copacetic about 400,000 Americans potentially.
Yeah, because I don't think it's going to happen. And I'll tell you something else. All my life, people have been getting the flu. We have a flu season every year. And every time some new strain comes up, we have to hear about the influenza of 1918. And everyone gets all scared and nothing ever happens. Sorry, guys.
Except in 1918.
And when these flus do go around the country, they take out all the people that are in their 80s and 90s that were lying in rest homes on their way out anyway. And I'm sorry, I wish they could live forever, but these people, I've been to a lot of rest homes, and there are people that literally, you look at them wrong and they're going to die. So if they would equally have died from a cold or anything else.
Yeah, but they might have kept going for another 3 or 5 or 7 years. And
they might have kept going for another 3 weeks.
Yeah, there's a whole range of, I ran the actuarial statistics, on my mother-in-law, because she has a certain amount of money from the sale of her house to live on for the rest of her life.
By the way, Rick, you're not in my will.
Okay. But
you were up until the moment you told me that.
Yeah, all right. But
so
anyway,
I don't want you getting any ideas and running any statistics on me.
But at the age of,
I was going to give you every painting in this room.
That would have been great.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, Lance, not really a painter or a sculptor.
The actuarial statistics.
No, hold on. Actually, a guy, he's got a fortune in the mid 8 figures. He's actually a secret multimillionaire. He has paid people in China to paint all these things so that he can present himself as an artist to get a girlfriend.
Well, that's not actually true, Rick. It's true that I'm a secret multimillionaire, and it's true that I'm looking for a girlfriend, but the other thing people don't know about me is that I am fantastic in bed, and I have very large hands. So anyway, okay. If you wanted to be, if we're going to change subject.
No. Hold on, one thing. Anyway, let me finish my point, because you like finishing points. At age 85, my mother-in-law has a life expectancy. She's a little older now, but she had a life expectancy, an estimated life expectancy of 7 years. So everybody in that joint where she lives, the senior living joint, probably the average life expectancy of everybody in there is roughly 5, 6, 7 years. And then you want the Grim Reaper to come in with his Corona scythe, and just chop them down. And
what do you mean? I want them to
I know.
When did I say I wanted?
No, but you're saying
it's
part of the circle.
It's like this is how Rick debates.
No, you're right. Wait. I take it back. I'm sorry, because you do that to me sometimes, and I don't like it when you. So I apologize. But if 400,000 Americans die from this fucking thing, and that means that most people in America will know somebody who dies from it.
Okay. First of all, we're not going to have 400,000 deaths. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. If I believed it, then I'd be panicking too. The last time we had a big one, I think we lost like 10, 15,000, 16,000.
The swine flu, the last pandemic, killed 12,500, but it was a much less killy fucking.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if what percentage of those people would have died from flu. I mean, it happened to be the swine flu, but what if it had just been the flu?
I don't know.
People don't know this, but it bears saying that the flu causes scores of thousands of deaths.
I think around 60,000.
Yeah,
deaths
the regular flu that we're not, panicking about. So, all right, can we move on to something
just
else?
real quick. So, if Lance is calling basically what he's calling it is a hoax.
No.
So let me finish. If it is a hoax,
No, I'm not calling it a hoax.
but so let me just finish the
Phrase
question.
it some other way, will you?
Ted Cruz is going to go into quarantine. Do you know that? And they canceled South by Southwest.
Yeah.
There's talks about about Coachella being now.
They should cancel Coachella.
So I mean, how do you respond to that, Lance?
I think that if nobody leaves their house, then no diseases will be spread. But I'm going to tell you how I respond. Whatever happened to Americans? Whatever happened to that race of people that stormed the beaches in Iwo Jima, that stood up against communism, that crushed the imperial Japanese empire? What happened to those men that went to free the slaves, singing glory hallelujah? I want to be one of those kinds of Americans that goes to Coachella and listens to rock music and takes downers and has sex with hippie girls. And is not afraid.
Yeah, but
I'm saying that Americans have to live their lives and stop acting like a bunch of 21st century pussies.
Yeah, but you're not going to be the one who dies from going to Coachella. It's going to be the hippie girl's grandma who dies. Because the hippie girl goes home and she gives coronavirus to her grandma. It's going to be
she shouldn't have sex with her grandma.
You don't have, all you have to do is sit down at a dinner table and be a little, coffee around grandma. So I don't know. I will say, if you still have somebody who was part of the greatest generation, who fought on the beach at Iwo Jima, do not take them to the fucking Cheesecake Factory for the next few months.
You take them to the Cheesecake Factory and you fill them full of meatloaf and cheesecake and string beans.
Well, at least
very overcooked string beans and jello. You give them that.
Yeah, at least get a booth with the high walls, because we had the people next to us. We were talking about the shit, like they got nervous and they moved to a booth. Which,
so we can cut this part out because I'm about to expose something that Rick told me if he doesn't want. But Lance, Rick just told me he sold all his stocks yesterday. When did you do it?
Friday. I've been selling
because he thinks there's going to be a stock market crash because of this coronavirus. What do you say to Rick?
Well, let me add one thing. Yeah, I did sell a bunch of stuff that according to futures, according to the numbers that predict what the stock market will do tomorrow will be the largest point drop on the Dow Jones average in history. It's supposed to drop 1,250 points.
Okay.
Profit or foolish? What do you say? What say you?
I don't know anything about the stock market except that every time it goes down, it goes back up again. I do know a guy that lost everything in the stock market, though, so I guess you can if you're not diversified. But you know what? About the things I know nothing, I shouldn't say anything.
Well, we can move on to this topic, which is, people are talking about how this might mean the end of the handshake, because nobody's going to be shaking hands for the next 6 months.
Nope. Should we agree?
He was coughing in his hand.
No, you don't want to.
I'll do it.
No, we'll do this bullshit. Actually, but I find this bullshit.
I want to be. Remember when Lady Diana shook an AIDS victim's hand, and it changed everything? People started to be.
Yeah. I don't think you should put elbows.
How many people died from the flu because of that handshake? You think?
Because of
Lady Di?
Lady Di? No,
Yeah.
Lady Diana was the princess, and she shook an AIDS patient's hand.
So people thought it's okay to shake hands. That's the number one way flu is transferred.
Yeah, but it was specifically with AIDS victims. It's like so. But I think we should go back to the 70s and bump butts like in The Hustle. All right. See, that's much better. Elbows are.
Is this better than us yelling?
That's
And also, people have a lot of sex in this.
okay. Let's have you guys have sex then.
No.
And it was heterosexual sex, and we liked it.
Yeah, but this book, I walked in and this book was lying out. And this is called Sodomy and the Pirate Tradition. English Sea Rovers in the 17th Century Caribbean.
Wow.
All right. I guess I should explain some stuff about that book. All right. So here's what happened. I started reading it. I was really disappointed because it wasn't just about sodomy. There's just a lot of sexual behavior described. So it was a bit of a disappointment. All right.
But the deal is that
it wasn't all about sodomy.
I read the back cover and it said it's an examination of what happens to groups of men engaged in nearly continuous warfare when they're having sex with each other. Right? It's because I mean,
I keep meaning to read it because I know it'll somehow prepare me for something. You know, every time you read a book, you're preparing yourself for something.
That's a good.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
Oh,
so
real quick,
yes.
Rick made a comment earlier that Bush had bad luck with 9/11. Would you consider that bad luck? Because didn't Clinton have a chance of taking out Biden? I mean, taking out
Bin Laden.
Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, and he blew up an aspirin factory instead or some shit.
Do you want to comment on that, Lance? Do you think Bush had bad luck, or was it just incompetence by the previous administration? What say you?
No, I'm not as adroit as our director. I have to admit, the guy's on it. The Clinton administration had not taken terrorism seriously. And if you really want to get down to it, the Carter administration was the one that really didn't react to the first and greatest terrorist action. And that was when the Iranian government actually committed an act of war by capturing our embassy and all of our embassy people in it. It wasn't the greatest loss of life, but it's what started Iran as a terrorist state, a state sponsor of terrorism around the world, which just got worse every year from that moment. But when they saw that the U.S. was impotent, that was kind of the end of it. That was the beginning of our troubles. So, a lot of people blame it on Carter not acting properly during the Islamic Revolution when the Shah was deposed by Islamic fanatics.
Well, so I with a lot of these things, there's a lot of blame to go around, and you could make the argument that the Shah killed a lot. It was terrorized his own people with his secret police, the Savak, was it? And we failed to rein him in. We installed him in the 50s.
I think we installed his father.
Okay, but we installed the Shah system. There was a guy in the 50s who had been, I think, democratically elected.
His name was, I believe it was Mossadegh.
Okay, and he was going to nationalize Iran's oil.
Yeah, he wasn't a good leader. He wasn't really, and we did, I believe,
we kicked
the
him out.
British and various people didn't want that guy in.
And so you had two generations of Shahs, and they had vicious secret police. And I assume it's some.
By the way, I'm not sure if it was the Shah's father. I
probably, because
right.
but if you're
generations of vicious secret police.
If you're going to install a dictator in some other country, it might behoove you to say, hey, we kind of quit killing your own fucking people, because that is going to have A, it's bad, and B, it could lead to even worse.
I'm going to tell you a very strange story right now.
Oh shit, I'm touching my motherfucking... Okay.
It's a very strange story. A lot of people don't know this, and I hang around with a lot of young black people, and they don't know this, so this is kind of important.
They don't know you hang around with black people?
They don't know the story I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
Rick and I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and during the 60s and 70s, it was absolutely, you had to hate the South African regime. If you were a normal person in the United States, you hated the South African regime because they had this system called apartheid that kind of treated blacks as second-class citizens, didn't give them the vote.
There were like three flavors. There were blacks, there was colored, which included like Indian. You know.
Right, but that's not the point I was going to make.
Yeah, but...
So let me make my point, because this is very interesting. And the South Africans, I believe, were cruel to the blacks, or at least treated them differently. Now there were explanations for that. You know, the South Africans had certain excuses, that they felt that they'd been fighting the Zulus for 300 years, and that the Zulus had invaded their territory, and that the conflict had just continued. So they had their side of it. But in general, every single human being, including me, hated South Africa and wanted Nelson Mandela, the leader of South African blacks, to be freed, and for it to be one man, one vote. So the blacks would vote, and naturally they would, since they were the majority in South Africa, they would inevitably elect a black leader, but we didn't care. We thought it was right that they do that, of course, because we're, you know, Americans believe in democracy. Now, eventually, world pressure forced the South Africans to do just that. The white majority gave everyone in the country one man, one vote. The blacks, but they said the reason we're fighting these blacks in South Africa, the reason that they were in the field constantly having battles and skirmishes and guerrilla tactics, and there was a repressive police state trying to put down the blacks. They said the reason we're doing this is because if we ever let the blacks take over South Africa, they're going to kill us all. And you guys can live in America and say that we're being wrong, but we don't want to die. And we said, you know, and everyone said, oh, you're being pigs, you're being unreasonable. This is just fear. You're living in fear. You know, we don't believe that. If you're nice to the black people, they'll be nice to you. To make a long story short, the blacks took over about 25 years ago, and they have killed so many white people and terrorized them and raped them. And it turns out that the Afrikaners, the South African whites, live lives that are sheer hell. And exactly what they predicted would happen happened. The Zulus, the blacks, have basically destroyed their lives and forced them into exile. The lucky ones.
Yeah, which doesn't justify apartheid.
The point I was going to make is this. There are times when you have to say, look, the Shah was a son of a bitch, but he was our son of a bitch. That used to be American foreign policy under Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt, they asked him about some South American dictator. And he said, yeah, he's a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch. And the idea is that there are times when you can't really get what you want. You were not going to make Iran into a Jeffersonian democracy.
But you could tell
and you probably were never going to make South Africa into an island of perfect melting pot where everyone got along regardless of race.
But that still doesn't.
It wasn't going to work out.
So you're going to have a shitty situation, apparently based on history, whether the whites are in charge or whether the black people are in charge. But that doesn't justify white people oppressing black people.
Well, what it looks like.
Wait.
What it looks like the only situation that might have worked would have been for the blacks and whites in South Africa to have separated entirely and cut up the country into whites only and blacks only, which sounds horrific to an American, but it might be the only way to have kept these groups.
Yeah, they did that with India and
attacking.
Pakistan and Bangladesh, and that has been a constant source of
Well, yeah, but what is you either had the whites oppressing the blacks under apartheid, or you've got the blacks really, torturing the whites in the situation we have now. And I'm just saying it would have been unthinkable, but they might have just divided up the country. It would have been better than what they have now. And I will say this, the whites are actually now forming an enclave somewhere deep in South Africa that is their last stronghold, where they're armed and they're trying to make a last stand. That's how serious.
Well, no, hold on, because South Africa's a big country.
Yeah, well, the areas where whites are not being tortured are very small.
I'm sure you've got a lot of gated communities.
Rick.
And they're probably super gated.
Rick, it ain't working. You don't know anything about this.
I know South Africa is like a super rated country.
But you're not asking the questions. You're arguing with me. You don't know anything about this. What has happened is the whites have gradually been forming armed compounds that get overrun, or they have their land confiscated because the army shows up and says, "Okay, we're taking this farm." I mean, they actually passed a law that whites couldn't own property a couple of years ago. So it's just a nightmare. And now they've formed an armed enclave where they vow to fight to the death.
I don't know.
In a small city, like a town in the middle of South Africa.
This sounds a lot like something you heard on a podcast.
Rick, here's the deal. You can say that if you actually have any information that is the reverse. You can't just sit back. This is why I lose my temper. Because Rick just sits back and says, "Yeah, that's bullshit." You know what, Rick? You don't know a fucking thing about this. You haven't read anything. You haven't heard any lectures. So why not just say, well, Lance, given that I don't have any more information of my own, I'll have to take your word for it.
But I don't have to be. I don't have to take your word for it. I can be skeptical.
How do you say that I'm lying, though? Why would I lie about this? What am I, a secret defender of white supremacy?
No, but you tend that most of your information comes from conservative and sometimes hyper-conservative sources.
Well, you prove me wrong. Turn off the camera. Prove me wrong.
Well, no. Let's do what we did last week, and that we can segue to this. That'll be my assignment.
Well, wait. I'll tell you what Rick did last time we had this discussion about South Africa. Being a brainwashed Democrat about 2 years ago, he said the same thing to me. And so what Rick did was he went to Wikipedia. Actually, he went to Wikipedia, which is his source, which is very, very right on. It's a left-wing source, and they quoted a spokesman from the black South African Zulu government who said, "We are not treating the whites in any way unfairly. They are treated with great respect, and nothing bad is happening here whatsoever." Rick turned the camera and said, "See, Lance? Proof."
No. But what you're saying sounds more like, what's Rhodesia called now?
Zimbabwe.
This sounds more like Zimbabwe than South Africa.
Well, South Africa has become Zimbabwe.
Well,
That's the whole point.
then that'll
has
be
become the same situation.
All right.
It's not that you're assigning. You don't have to make it an assignment.
No, let's make it, because I'm going to work back on last week's assignment.
Let me ask you a question. So I just, do you think what I'm saying sounds like it just couldn't happen?
No,
I'm
saying
that's
no.
so unreasonable.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No. What I'm saying is that there probably are groups of armed whites who are forming compounds, and I'm not saying.
But you don't think that the new government, is in no way would they ever try to get even with the
No, I
with the
think
whites
they probably
from
would, but I reserve the right to go do homework and possibly come up with a mitigated view that doesn't, because it doesn't. What you're presenting doesn't sound like.
It doesn't sound politically correct.
No, it doesn't sound well-rounded. It doesn't sound like it's the entire situation.
Okay.
Now,
do you know that South Africa is the rape capital of the world?
Yes, I do know that.
So how did that happen, Rick, if what I'm saying is just made-up craziness?
I don't know, but that's what I reserve the right.
If you agree with me on that, then surely there is some basis for what I'm saying.
Yeah, there is, but I reserve the right to find out what you found out, and then maybe find out some others.
You're not going to do that. But
no,
anyway,
but I did.
Go on.
I did my
segue.
You last week you challenged me to come up with documents.
Yes.
That show that Trump had these kind of unsavory financial transactions via Deutsche Bank.
Like, I wanted
and you wanted to see
prove
documents.
to me that Trump was a Russian dupe.
No, you said documents. You said prove it.
Yeah, I want to see the documents.
And so all I did was I Googled Trump Deutsche Bank loan documents.
Okay.
And that's pretty much all I mean, it took like 5 minutes.
Right,
but there are Trump Deutsche Bank loan documents available online. And then there is a bunch of other stuff that puts those loans into context. But if you want to see the actual loan documents, there are at least the signature pages available online via some enterprise that has forensic in its name. But all you have to do is Google Trump Deutsche Bank loan doc, and if you want, I'll show you those.
Wait a minute, Rick. I can't believe this is so easy. Rick, nobody has ever denied that Trump couldn't take a loan from a bank.
Yeah, but you want to see? Okay, yeah, but like he.
What does that prove?
Well, you have to put it in the context of everything that happened. Like he defaulted on a $600 million loan from Deutsche Bank.
Okay.
And then he took out a second loan for $35 million to pay the from Deutsche Bank to pay the interest on the loan he defaulted on.
So,
like it's and all that when you put everything together.
Deutsche Bank is not Putin's bank. Deutsche Bank is a German bank. Germany is the ally of the United States.
No, but Deutsche Bank is a bank that's been fined tens of millions of dollars for money laundering, for laundering money for Russian oligarchs.
Okay, Wells Fargo was recently fined millions of dollars.
But not for, for setting up fake account or like coerced accounts for American customers. It wasn't fined for being the money launderers of the Russians.
Okay, Rick, the fact that an international businessman like Trump got loans from Deutsche Bank, which is a German bank, that happens to have money from people from other countries besides Germany, one of which may be Russia, doesn't prove that Trump is a Russian spy or a Russian dupe.
No, but Trump...
It's the most tenuous connection.
It's not tenuous. I mean,
Trump also drinks vodka, I hear.
Yeah, but Trump has done a lot of business with Russian oligarchs.
But that's not true. The only business he's ever been tied to with Russian oligarchs is that he sells real estate in New York, and there are Russian people that are renting apartments in New York.
That's where most of the transactions, that's the context for...
Okay, but that doesn't mean he's a Russian duke, Rick.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I've sold paintings to Russians. Does that make me a Russian dupe?
I used to work at a place called Weber's Place in Reseda, and I was a bouncer, but I also kind of bussed tables too, because just everybody kind of did everything. And yeah, I cleared like French fries and the bones of chicken wings from Russians. Yeah, we've all dealt with Russians. I've checked their IDs.
All right.
The people, what I used to find fascinating was the brassiest, most American-looking people. So like sometimes, working in a bar, you'll see a range of people. And it used to be people got kind of gussied up to go to bars because that's where you got you hooked up, and sometimes the most bleached blonde, tightest jean, red, white, and blue bustier wearing people were from Russia because they wanted to come to America and be fucking Americans.
I have a theory about that. I have a theory, and I have no proof for this whatsoever, but my theory is that when people are from a very large country, I think they behave differently than people from very small countries. Like, if people are stuck together in small cities like Amsterdam or Prague or Tokyo, they're very...
Well, no, Tokyo, you can't call that a small city.
No, but
you're calling it's geographically concentrated.
I'm saying my theory is that geographically concentrated people are far more careful in their behavior and far less loose and open and big. And so I think Americans and Russians do share in that similarity. We're not as tight and very formal. No, that's my
because theory. Russia's a big-ass country geographically.
It's my theory that there's people are more spread out. They can, and a lot of people have said that there are similarities between Russians and Americans.
I guess the way that the Soviet Union and then Russia operated, you had to get everything on the black market and gray market. So the people who thrived are kind of rugged, shenanigan doers.
Okay. They're resourceful then.
Resourceful and also like in some cases, kind of borderline criminal. In other cases, like definitely criminal. I mean, like the Russians that I cleared their French fries away from, those guys made me a little nervous. Because the people who got out of Russia with money, those people might be badass.
Well, I have a theory that, this isn't even a theory. It turns out that Russia sort of threw out their old values with communism. And when they got rid of communism, they haven't quite found anything to replace it. Some are going back to Greek Orthodox and very old Russian values. But I think they are people at this point that are trying to do what works. I think they've become sort of a philosophy of, I'm going to do whatever I can do to get things to improve.
The capitalism, which is what I think a lot of them wanted and what we wanted for them, got short-circuited by kleptocracy.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is the personal values of the average Russian.
Yeah, I don't know what that is except for alcoholism and despair.
Yeah, a lot of that. And basically, what values should we have? In other words, they don't have a system that worked, that they can trust, that they can believe in. So there's a kind of a cynicism.
Yeah, because they've had, like, we as Americans have been lucky to have had, more than 2 centuries of a political system that inspires optimism in a lot of its people. Now, if you're a black person in the South in the 1913, there's a lot to not inspire optimism, depending on where you are. But for a lot of Americans over our history, you know, there are values to embrace, and there's, you know, we can feel good about America, even though there are darker corners of America. Whereas fucking Russia is nothing but fucking dark corners. The greatest moment in their history was probably the siege of Leningrad, right? The most heroic motherfucking moment where they held off the fucking Germans for like I don't know, how many months?
I don't know.
But it was the most miserable fucking battle and siege in human history where probably 10 million fucking people died.
I don't know the number.
Cannibalism, just the worst fucking conditions, and just super heroic but the grimmest conditions. As Russia basically, you know, saved the fucking world from fucking Nazis at just gruesome expense to themselves.
Speaking of Russia and gruesome deaths, just real quick, if I can interject, North Korea has launched 3 projectile missiles recently.
When?
Within the last week.
Yeah.
So what the hell is going on with that? I mean, I thought Trump had this in the bag.
This is something that North Korea has been doing for, I don't know how many years, but many presidential administrations. The Trump administration stands apart from other administrations in saying that, yeah, we made friends with them and they're not going to be assholes anymore. That you can criticize that, but as far as what North Korea does, North Korea's always done this shit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about the missile tests, so but it doesn't surprise me until we never struck a deal with them. You know, the other presidents have used the stick, and Trump tried to use the carrot, and we'll see which, if anything, could ever be done with these people. But I just want to go back to something you were saying about...
That's your response? After Trump has claimed to say that...
But it's obvious, like, that they've continued to do their bullshit.
But Trump claims that it's been a huge success, that there would have been an all-out war.
All right, so but like, do we have to get in a fight about it? I mean, that's the show. We need to get in a fight about it, but like, if Lance is gonna...
So you support Trump's... So you give Semper victory on that one?
No.
That's what you're
saying. Because they're still doing... No, I'm not. I'm saying that regardless, that for a number of decades, Kim Jong-un and his dad Kim Jong-il and I don't know, probably the grandpa too, would try to play the West by saying, yeah, we will behave better if you give us a bunch of shit. Food.
So Trump's been great on this so far then?
No, I mean, no, he's been, but...
Because that's what he says.
Yeah, but Trump says a lot of shit that turns out, I mean... Yeah, has probably been no more successful than other presidents.
Okay. All right. You accept that, Lance?
Yeah, I mean...
That's a loss for Trump.
Even at the time, there was some congressman that said that Trump deserved the Nobel Peace Prize when he was trying to make a deal with Kim, with Koreans. And
that was over the top.
Yeah, I thought, look, let's... when they open up their nuclear facilities and let us examine them, and they shut them down, and they reunified North and South Korea, then he really would be the greatest president of my lifetime. And that's what I said at the time, that he would be the greatest president because no other president's been able to solve the North Korean problem. So, but until then, the jury's out. We don't know what the final legacy of the Trump-Korea doctrine will be. Not until 5 years from now.
Well, then that goes into a lie for Trump because every Trump rally he says the success with North Korea. So that's one of your lies right there.
Yeah. What's interesting? All right, to segue back to.
Well, wait. I do want to respond. I don't know what's happened with these missiles. Now I come with the same ignorance that Rick often comes to. I haven't heard about it. What he was doing, what the North Koreans were doing was shooting missiles close to Japan. Now, I don't think they did that again, did they?
It says experts said the strategic weapon may mean an advanced type of its intercontinental ballistic missile or a submarine-launched ballistic missile. This is still developing.
Yeah,
it's on CNN.
Yeah,
Well,
it's become scarier because...
Have they shot them at Japan, though? Because
the launch comes after last week's firing of 2 unidentified short-range projectiles from an area near the coastal city of Wonsan into waters between the Korean Peninsula and Japan.
well, okay, don't interrupt me. Here is our concern. We can't prevent them from making scientific and technological advances unless they shut down their program publicly, which they haven't done and have no intention of doing. What our goal and what Trump's goal was, short of shutting it down, was to just keep them from shooting at Japan or South Korea. So I think he feels like at least they're not attacking anybody. That's his goal.
North Korea gets scarier over time because they become more technologically proficient.
Right.
I mean, probably 10 years ago they couldn't lob anything over into Japan.
Right.
And now they probably maybe can.
Yeah.
And they certainly can lob, if they were suicidal, they could certainly launch a bunch of shit at Seoul, the capital of South Korea, because that's only 30 miles from the border.
Well, they could have destroyed Seoul with conventional artillery.
Yeah. But you mentioned, Director, Trump's rally. So what's going to be interesting is what happens to the whole election process if coronavirus really kicks in. Does Trump continue to have rallies, that have 5,000, 12,000 people at them, that have thousands of people in line outside, if people are going to get sick? And also, what is fucking Mitch McConnell going to do about the election in November if millions of people are sick? Because voting is a bunch of people standing in line to go vote, and the Republicans are the ones with a more vulnerable population because Republicans skew older. So is anybody going to do anything about making the election safer, or voting safer, if we're in the middle of a pandemic? And also, are we going to...
Can I answer this question?
Well, no, let me add a couple more quick points. All the schools in Japan closed down. Northern Italy is under lockdown. Stanford University, no more classes in classrooms for this coming semester. Maybe U.S. and the schools shut down across America, and within a month there will be thousands of schools shut down. And we may have the NBA playoffs, which happen beginning in late April, maybe played in empty arenas. March Madness will probably get in there before things get so seriously that they play those in empty arenas. But this shit is coming. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to make a prediction because I have a PhD in science. My prediction is that this is going to be just like a normal flu season. And if you don't like the normal flu season, you won't like this one either. But that I believe it'll just fade away. I don't know if this happens in other parts of the country or the world, but every year we get announcements on the TV that it's flu season, get your shots. I think it's flu season again, guys. And I think, you talk, I think in 2 or 3 months it will go away, just like flu always goes away. And people will vote and people will have rallies. And I get to the point where I can smell the Democrat press. They're literally driving people crazy. I'm certain that the Democrats are behind. They control the media. The media loves to panic people, and I'm impressed with how effective they are. They can make Americans act like lab rats. They can terrify people. 2 years ago, 90% of Americans thought Trump was a Russian spy. Now, 90% of Americans think that the next plague is here today. And everybody's acting like chickens with their heads cut off.
Well,
the sky is not falling, guys.
A Republican judge just ruled that the Mueller report needs to be unredacted. I don't know if unredacted, because Bill Barr, according to this judge, presented a misleading summary of the. So this Republican judge.
How does this Republican judge know if he hasn't read the unredacted version?
I don't know.
Okay, you know what? If you want to unredact the Mueller report, that's fine. I think the Mueller report was protecting the FBI and the CIA. So that's fine. Unredact it. I'd be happy to know what those dirty bastards, those dirty Democrats were doing to Trump. And by the way, a lot of people don't know this, but this is on record. This is absolutely on record. Brennan, the head of the CIA, was the first person to encounter this dossier, the one that was used to frame Trump. And Brennan was a communist before he joined the CIA. He's admitted it on tape. It also turns out that when Comey, the head of the FBI, was in college, he says he flirted with communism as well. So I just think it's really weird that the head of the FBI and the head of the CIA were radical leftists before they joined up the FBI and the CIA. And then, now, don't try and deny this, because there's an actual interview I can find where Brennan says it on YouTube. He says that he had to admit that he was a communist because he was taking the lie detector test to enter the CIA, and he knew they'd find out when they asked him the question, so he just admitted it.
I know, people do stupid shit in college. I used to I carved a bunch of scars into myself because I thought it would help me get a girlfriend.
Yeah, and people murder people in college, but I just think it's very strange that the head of the FBI and the head of the CIA were both communists in college, and that both of them ended up making up a lie about Trump that caused his presidency to have to endure 3 years of insane investigations and lies and accusations against him. And now we're all going to die from the coronavirus.
All right, so do leftists control the panicky media around the world? Because
yes, they do.
Okay, because
the BBC is so leftist that they're actually thinking of defunding it in Britain, because the new government is conservative, and they're saying this is just ridiculous. They're just an arm of the Socialist Party in Britain.
Well, the deal is that panic means views and clicks. And actually, the U.S. is less panicky than a lot of countries. I mean, like I said, Japan is under lockdown. Northern Italy,
well, these countries are getting outbreaks. I'm not denying that.
So are we.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is, okay, there are epicenters of this virus where people are getting killed. I believe that.
Well, I mean, the epicenter.
I don't deny that Iran and Italy and South Korea have a problem.
We have a problem too. We just don't know it as much as our rate of infection, according to the tests we've performed, is the lowest of all the developed countries. But it's not because we have a lower rate of infection.
Maybe it is.
It might. Why would it be? The deal is
because we've got because two reasons. Because we're far from China, and because we have great hygiene practices.
Nope, it's in 33 states with actual confirmed cases, and we've done less than 1/3 of 1% as much testing per capita as South Korea.
Yeah, they're right next to it.
Yeah, but we've got a huge. We're going to be as infected. And I made this claim on Twitter, and I'll make it now. That the deal. I mean, we're a big fucking country, right? 2 days ago, we were in 9th place in number of confirmed cases. We're going to go to number 2, I say, within a month.
All right. Fair enough. We'll hold you to that. Do we have any more topics?
Yeah.